On this podcast, we talk about different areas of business and all things marketing. My name is Dave Doyle.
And I'm Dave Alton, and this is Social Antics, another marketing podcast. Are you enjoying your float over there? Or some bollocks, mate. Now go on. We're recording now, yeah? Happy days. Pour that out there now. It's going to be really weird for the audio listeners, but he's basically made an absolute dog's bollocks of his beer pouring.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Social Antics with myself, Dave Alton, and Owen, our producer. Dave, how are you this week?
I'm good. I'm rested. I was away for a few days last week.
Bit of the colour.
Yeah, bit burnt. But we're getting to summer season now, so conferences coming up, getting abroad, going away with the lads in a couple of weeks' time.
No
a few
students.
trips here and there. Students are gone, except a few repeats. Just one or two as usual. Yeah, that's basically it. So a fun summer is in store.
Did you have a good holiday?
Yeah, it was good. Relaxing. Chillaxing.
You're looking very dapper. You're almost looking like a kind of a cool Darth Vader or something, like all in the black.
Cool Darth Vader. I'm putting that on both my Tinder and LinkedIn profile. I'm not sure which one it suits better.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
Styling
I
there now with the cap and everything.
we had a very important meeting earlier on in the old university, so I said I'd dress up for it.
And
it's got nothing to do with the fact that my head is burnt whatsoever, and I'm wearing the cap indoors for a change.
Very good, very good. You brought the beers this week. What you bring to us?
Yeah, so this week we have one of the local brews near our podcast studio, which is in an unknown location in Cork somewhere. And this is a KPA, or a Kinsale Pale Ale, which is a winner of a World Beer Award, Ireland category. And it is from Black's Brewery in Kinsale. And a lot of people local, I would say, would know this quite well. It wouldn't be as well known around Ireland, I would say, even though I know they're stocked in a lot of kind of national kind of off license and stuff like that. But really, really good.
Really, really nice. I just love the line on the side of it there. You can do your story a bit, but living the dream since 2013. I think that's brilliant.
There's nothing as good as a bit of rhyming in the old marketing things, is there? But they're actually, the description on the site actually isn't too bad. It's basically just calling out what craft beer is. So all it says on the side of the bottle is Black's Brewery escapes the mundane of the mass market, producing beers with passion, personality, and lots of hops. American style pale ale bursting with Cascade and Citra hops, tropical and citrus flavors, beautifully balanced with malt sweetness, which again isn't too over the top.
Simple.
Kind of describe what it is. I like it overall. Good.
No, it's nice beer, and they have a few in the range there as well. So,
and they're currently doing a raise, as far as I'm aware, they're building a new brewery down in Kinsale, or a new distillery, because they also distill whiskey.
I think there's actually gin there as well. So yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that. Give us some good news story this week. What have you got for us? Off on a good note now, nothing too depressing.
No, there's no good note. We won't start off on the good news. We'll start off on the serious stuff, and we'll get lighter as we kind of go on, right? So obviously, in the past week, the US Supreme Court basically overturned or revoked Roe v. Wade, which everyone listening will know what this is all about. But effectively, what Roe v. Wade did is that it gave certain rights to pregnant women, particularly when it came to their right to have an abortion in pretty much every state in the United States. That has now been revoked. Now, the tragic thing about this is that, okay, so one, there's the immediate issue whereby now a lot of women are going to go through abortions which are more dangerous, not in medical settings, and so on and so forth. The other thing that it always does, and I think this is really, really important, particularly for the month that it is, so everyone will know it's Pride Month over in the US and other places as well. A lot of the commentary is often that, I'm kind of sick of Pride Month. Why are these people marching? Why is this all going on? When you see things like this happening in the world, it shows the importance of people constantly reminding each other and as a collective where we've come from and all the bad stuff that happened to it's not even minor communities, like it's women. But the attitude that certain people have towards certain genders, certain people, certain races, and so on and so forth.
The comment, I think it was Morgan Freeman said in an interview one day, he was asked that specific question, like, what do you think about, when you have the whole area of, like, Black History Month and, or, Black History Days and all this kind of stuff. And he basically turned around and says, I look forward to the day when we can just have a history day. And we're not there yet, and that kind of thing.
No,
so
we're
exactly
not.
The same as what you just said.
We're not. And again, it is like, it is really, really important that, again, when you're looking at all these things that some people, and we do it on this podcast quite a lot, where we talk about brands associated with these, and it's all about kind of wokeism and stuff like that. But when, again, you go back and you strip back and you look at very, very recent history, it's not that long ago when a lot of this stuff, good stuff, we could argue happened in terms of Roe v. Wade, and all of a sudden, in a click of a finger, 6 judges, 3 of whom were put on by Trump, by the way, have basically decided to roll back the years in America in terms of people's rights. Like, you could make a very, very valid argument that a gun has more rights in the US than a pregnant woman, which is absolutely incredible. So I think then, so obviously business podcast, right? So what's interesting then is that what's the role of brands here and how brands are going to respond. So to be fair to your Apple, Google, JP Morgan Chase, Microsoft, Starbucks, Citigroup, PayPal, Tesla, Levi's, Dick's Sporting Goods, Yelp, a few other companies as well, they've basically all come out and they've said any employee that they have, they're going to pledge to reimburse
I've seen a couple of those,
all any out-of-state travel costs for women who are working for them in a state whereby abortion is currently illegal.
I've even seen it, not even women, it's the partners of
people
working in the companies.
Exactly. So look, I mean, I know this only happened last week, right? There's a lot more that these companies, I think, are going to have to do in terms of rallying politicians, getting people to go and actually vote, and make sure that there are robust state laws now in place that protect people. I think brands and marketers and corporations do have a fundamental role there, particularly in terms of educating people through marketing and branding. And again, like I said to you a number of weeks ago, when it comes to something which is contentious, that's where you want brands to start being woke, because then it actually means something. Then there's actually a purpose behind it. It's not, again, it's like in a number of weeks ago, we saw a lot of companies, BMW, I think, were one, and all of a sudden it went on to Pride Month and they changed all of the logos to the rainbow colours. But then they didn't change the colours of their logo for their Middle East branch.
Or the Middle East branch,
So it's kind of going, well, you either support it or you don't. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's really, really important for brands to not kind of, you call it greenwashing, but effectively woke washing. So we're going to pretend that we support all this stuff when it's easy to support it. Now is the time where brands really need to come out and, again, and I don't mean in a silly way, I mean really, really get behind informing people, educating people, investing and getting behind politicians, backing politicians, not endorsing politicians that are against these things, all that type of stuff.
Important to mention, it doesn't matter like what side of things you're on, but stand by what side of things you're on. Do you know?
Well, it does in this case. I mean, anyone who is against the rights of women to get an abortion is just absolutely insane. Particularly, again, when it's been around for so long. But just to illustrate, and again, this is kind of it's humorous, but it's not humorous because it's very, very serious. But one of the Supreme Court judges that ruled in favour of getting rid of Roe v. Wade, essentially, also said in his, they write a kind of a short piece afterwards as to why, also said that they should think of rolling back on people's right to use contraceptives. So this is really like, we can't even wrap up anymore. Like, this is really the way it's kind of going. So again, when you're dealing with old grey-haired men, it wasn't all old grey-haired men, by the way, but it just shows you how shocking the world is at the moment. Like, between COVID, the war in Ukraine, this shit, it's just like, for fuck's sake, like, people need to camp on.
The old guys in like Congress and Senate and all this kind of stuff. One of my favourite pieces now, whatever your opinion of him, we all know it now at this stage, you've told us enough, but like Mark Zuckerberg, do you know, remember when he got called up for the whole Cambridge Analytica thing and he was put in front of and they were asking the most ludicrous questions, like, these people are running the laws and they haven't got a clue what's going on.
No,
basically.
he ran. But like, now, I would always be of the opinion that technology is always going to be faster than the law anyway. But it's when you see how disconnected. It wasn't even that it was so it was
Can you get
embarrassing.
my file?
You get all my data files from your Facebook, and it's like, oh lads, come on. Yeah. And the problem is that, and again, the smartest person in a room is often the person who says, I don't know, but I know he knows or she knows, therefore ask
Call
them
them
the
in.
question, because they're the ones who are going to be able to give me the information that I need to actually make a right decision. And they couldn't even recognize that they don't know. Like, if you are a 70-year-old US senator and your, we'll say, 10-year-old, I don't know, niece or whatever the story is, knows more about technology than you do, you should not be quizzing one of the most technologically literate people in the world on what he's doing with technology. And it's just, again, it just points to just a lack of talent in politics in general. You see what's going on in Boris at the moment?
I was just about to ask you,
I
what
know,
was your
do
thoughts
you know,
of moving
like,
along
Jesus
from that?
Christ. Someone, I saw it and something during the week, because there was all the Mick Lynch stuff, right, about the trade union stuff like that, which I thought was really, really interesting. But one of the, I cannot remember who it was, but someone said, maybe it was Mick Lynch, but it was someone else said that the main problem with Boris is that he's unembarrassable. There is nothing more that he can do. Like, everyone says, oh, he'll be turfed out. He's got the edge now. He's gone from being an idiot to breaking the law to now breaking international law. But this is the problem. Every time it just gets worse. Yeah. And as it gets worse and worse and worse, it gets normalized. And he's able to normalize it because he just moves on. And again, to think of what you had in America with Trump and what you have in the UK with Boris, and then you've got Roe v. Wade over. It's kind of like who is running places, like, do you know?
One of my favorite T-shirts that came out when around the time I think Trump was elected, and you had Boris then on this side in the UK. You had the printing company Hairy Baby, who we have the mugs from. They put up a T-shirt from the song, a parody of the song, and they had a picture of Trump and a picture of Boris, and it was like stuck in the middle with you. So, very good.
That's effectively it, though. But I suppose just one other thing on that, I think, which is important, is that, so according to Pew Research, 61% of Americans say abortion should remain legal in most circumstances. So this is not going to be popular, and I hope, unlike what usually happens, which is where Americans are either red or blue, that effectively a lot of women come out and say, fuck this, and vote in a certain way that is going to allow them to get their rights back as quick as possible. Yeah, so another, I suppose, less serious news for a change. So interesting one there that I saw on Marketing Week this week, naturally, was Nike CEO John Donohue has said he is very confident as in inverted commas, means he must be very confident in the company's long-term strategy despite a 5% dip in profits over the quarter to May 31st as the company's direct-to-consumer business continues to grow. And over the last kind of year or so, they've seen roughly a 22% increase in online sales thus far. So the understanding is that Nike are starting to pivot into more of a direct-to-consumer model. So as opposed to them selling their gear to your lifestyle sports, your JD Sports, your whatever, Sports Direct and so on and so forth, they will still be doing that, but they're looking to get more direct-to-consumer because obviously they have the bigger margins there, and that's via their website, which is going very, very well, but also in their more experiential Nike stores and kind of, you know, their partnerships they'd have with, you know, your Man United and so on and so forth with their mega stores. So at the moment, it's not going to plan as such because they're 5% down in terms of overall revenue. But I think this actually could be really, really smart by Nike. And the reason being is that if you look at sportswear and track it over the last, particularly kind of 10 years or so, sportswear has gone really, really expensive. Like, even if you looked at your average football jersey 10 years ago, was probably somewhere between 50 to 55 quid. Nowadays, you're paying 75, 80, sometimes up to 90, depending on the brand.
I sports gear myself, but
I don't buy sports gear necessarily, but you'd see it. And obviously, I'm involved in a football club and so on and so forth. So, like, gear is constantly sports gear. Sports gear is that's going up as well. Sports gear is going up. So I think there is a logic here in Nike maybe recognizing that with inflation and the way that it's going, their brand is going to become very unaffordable very, very quickly. So is there a way that they can reduce their price point, maintain their margins relative to what they would usually get via their third-party distributors?
The only way they're going to bring that down is in the initial stages and making the stuff cheaper to make, really, like.
Well, no, because if their model is changing from a B2B model where they're selling into JD.
Well, no, they get more margin.
Obviously, they're going to get more margin. So if they can do that, they're going to have to spend more money on customer acquisition costs and so on and so forth. But if they can control that consumer, and like in reality, and if you look at all the heritage brands, Coca-Cola, and the car brands, your Volkswagens, Adidas, Nike are the ones that constantly reinvent themselves and the ones that constantly are very, very in touch with consumer attention and what consumers are looking for. So if there's any brand, I think, that can drag the consumers kicking and screaming into this world of direct-to-consumer, integrated, like we said, with TikTok and so on and so forth, I think it's going to be Nike.
Yeah, but do you think people, like, grand with TikTok, and there might be, like, some sort of a campaign influence or whatever, that kind of stuff's fine. But on a day-to-day shopper and consumers, do you actually think people will go, do you know what, I want Neuros, I'm going to go to the Nike website? Or will they do what they done and went into your Lifestyle Sports or went into...
See, I think
is it just going to be replaced by another brand? I don't think it will be because they're so big, but...
I think it depends, because my whole thing is that... So, a lot of consumers still prefer to shop in person because there's issues with size and fitting and material. There's some stuff that you cannot get from an online experience. That being said, I know myself, and I know from a lot of the fashion brands that I work with, that people are very, very brand loyal. And once they have an understanding of, okay, I'm an 8 or I'm a 9 in a Nike or I'm this and that, all of a sudden it becomes a lot easier for them to shop. And again, like, so Nike won't be able to offer that range of choice that you would get from a third-party distributor like an ASOS or whatever, so they just can't do that. So therefore, where's that extra added value coming from in terms of... And again, I'm thinking in terms of content here that they can offer people if they go to the Nike website, loyalty programs that they can offer when people sign up directly to the Nike website, integrations with, again, your sports clubs. There was the commentary a number of years ago, which I think was a Scott Galloway kind of a strategic pivot thing, where he said that a lot of these brands, and not just in the sports space, but in loads of other space, are going to look at having recurring revenue models. So what he basically said is that you sign up to Nike, and in the same way that you pay 20 quid to Netflix, you pay 20 quid to Nike. This gives you a discount on the Nike store. It gives you access to Nike gyms if they start opening gyms or start partnering with certain gyms, and you get entered into draws for World Cup or whatever the story is. Do you know what I mean? So all of this kind of stuff is where Nike can add value, and if they can add value and keep their margin, it's a dangerous strategy change. But again, if there's someone who can pull it off, it's Nike.
Yeah. One thing that popped up for me this week with the sports brands, with sports related, I'll come into it there in 2 seconds, but you just reminded me actually of something I spotted last week, which was the partnership between, I'm not sure if you saw it, we've talked about it plenty of times here, Gym Plus Coffee and Aston Villa. Yeah. They signed on as sponsors for Aston Villa for the ladies football team, for the main ladies football team. Very clever for the lads.
Really, really good move. Aston Villa are a massive club. I mean,
what I like about it, I think, is it's almost, not that I'll say, they couldn't afford to go into the main Premiership or the men's teams or anything like that. What I think
they're with Aston Villa.
No, what I'm saying is they're going with the ladies football team. Yeah. And what I like about that is the same almost as Nike, is they're not going with your straight down the line conventional top of the range. They're going with the ladies football team. They're going with the underdog almost to come up into the not the lower level teams, but the kind of the side teams.
They're not. It's not the men's first team, which is still the most popular. But at the moment, which is interesting, women's football is the fastest growing sport in the world at the moment. And again, like Gym Plus Coffee, and I don't know what their operational or supply chain capability is. I would imagine for them to supply a club like Aston Villa with their premium rate, I don't think it'd be positive. They're too small for that right now, because the demand would be absolutely astronomical. Going into the women's setup and understanding that area, the different types of garments, they're athleisure. This isn't athleisure. This is now sportswear. Particularly if they start, and I don't know exactly what the partnership, are they going to start providing the jerseys? Is it just the athleisure stuff?
I don't know. They had a great promo video launch with drone footage of the stadium. They had some of the team walking into the stadium, and that very iconic logo that they have, the kind of very recognizable logo on the back of the jumpers.
Yeah.
You just see that kind of coming up into the stadium. It's very, very well shot piece of content, and a really, really nice launch. Like, the founders, Dermot and Niall, teased it out the night before the big news coming, and all. They've quite a big following online themselves. So no, absolutely fantastic.
I knew they were
looking
at. I knew they were looking at getting into kind of the kind of sports industry for a while. Again, really, really clever way of doing it. And what people forget is that you say Aston Villa located in Birmingham, which is the second biggest city in the UK. Yeah. When you ask people what's the second biggest city in the UK, they say Manchester, Liverpool, Edinburgh. Yeah. It's Birmingham. So there's a massive, massive catchment audience there that they can look to grow. And again, women's football, is the fastest growing sport in the world at the moment.
But even partnering here, they've partnered with Kelly Harrington. They partner with, we've already seen obviously the likes of Niall Horan and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just, it's they're being very, very clever in who they partner with, which I think is great. It's not just new brand on the block.
Little strategic pivots. Just little pivots here and there, which again allowed them to break into a particular industry. And again, really, really clever stuff.
Following on that from another sports one, it's unlike me to have two sports ones, but sports one is the end of an iconic partnership over in the UK, which was Robinsons and Wimbledon. Now, not so much the actual brands themselves we're going to talk about.
Robinsons now is the dilutant drink.
Yeah.
Okay, just so I know.
So basically, they've had a partnership which I was amazed by for 86 years. They started this. Now, there was story time with me this time. What I came across was how the actual Robinsons brand kind of came about and how they kind of teamed up with Wimbledon was. Robinson's barley water was born in the changing rooms at Wimbledon when a sales rep combined Robinson's barley crystals with lemon juice, sugar and water, and ever since it's been drank there. And that's how 86 years ago they came up with.
Robinson's barley crystal sounds like a fella called Robinson down the back streets made.
Dresses up as Elvis on the weekend, does the karaoke.
And does the karaoke after his crystals,
But nowadays, it's very rare to hear any kind of partnership. Sports are, outside sports obviously, but to hear a partnership that's 86 years in the running, and that they're ending after 86 years. So it's phenomenal to hear that. I don't think you will find that anymore.
Was there a reason given?
All that came out and said is Robinson said that they're now focusing on broadening its summertime reach. So going that a bit further, they said beyond the kind of the fortnight, the 2 weeks or whatever of Wimbledon, they're looking to focus on new campaigns such as the Big Fruit Hunt. And the campaign encourages families to get outside and take part in a virtual hunt for fruit.
That's not an answer. I'm
for a chance to win prizes.
Stop, shut up. That's not an answer. That's not an answer. That's that's not an answer at all. So basically, the marketing manager or sales director, whoever's in Robinson,
2 weeks
said,
is not enough for us.
This is not value for money anymore.
Yes. So back in 2015, they had a chance to get out, and they said they renew it for 5 years. So 5 years is up, done. Good luck, we're out. But no, I just think it was interesting to see an iconic brand like that for, like, you'd know now from the sports side of things how important sponsors are and how important more so the partnership side of it, to actually pick the right partners to come on board as well. Yeah, no, there is the blend too. So I mean, like, ultimately the revenue is really, really important. I mean, if you look at, and it depends on what level you're pitching at, right? So if you take, listeners may not know, but I'm a director of local football club here called Cork City Football Club. Boo.
If you look at if you look at the revenue and the way it's split up, we're still heavily reliant on gate receipts.
Yeah.
But we're looking to grow commercial merchandise, fundraising, other areas of growth. If you look at your clubs in England, they are now not really reliant on gate revenue at all. Yeah, it's all commercial merchandise. Exactly. So, sorry, and then it's obviously.
I was talking away from the mic there. He'd be giving out to me.
The producer be giving out to you again, buddy.
Yeah, you throw some at me.
That's because you never learn. You never listen. But fundamentally, right. So it's all about your business model, right? And again, the partnerships need to be important, because the partnerships, if you've got a good partnership for both parties involved, then it means that commercial arrangement will go further and further and further and become more integrated and become more valuable over time. So, for example, we're partnered with the local university. And despite them writing us a check every year, which is what they pay for being on the front of the jersey, they also then offer our players scholarships, which they can use then to promote their academic programs. We bring the academy teams in there, and we bring nutritionists in, and the nutritionists talk about the importance of well-being.
There's a full collaboration there.
All this kind of stuff. We offer mental health services to our younger players. All this type of stuff. And it's part of that integration. And obviously for a university, which is where I work, having that community outreach is really, really important for them. So that's an example of a well tight-knitted relationship which has lasted for pretty much the last kind of 6 years. With Robinsons, because it has gone on for so long, I can only assume that they've kind of decided we need to pull back on our budget here somewhere, and they've probably saturated the market.
Yeah, but like,
and interesting
it's
enough,
almost become, it's probably like, it's so long there, it's so iconic, it's just become part of it. It's almost like it's just become washed, probably.
What I would say as well, you say it's iconic. I wouldn't have, to be honest, I didn't know.
I'm not a big tennis fan, but I knew that they were a partnership.
I wouldn't have known. I have to say, I wouldn't have known. The one that I would always associate with Wimbledon was Rolex.
Okay, yeah, because they're always on the side.
Yeah. I wouldn't have associated with Robinsons with them at all. Which again, probably is a lesson they should have bailed out 50 years ago.
Good job.
Yeah, exactly. So, but again, that's a bullshit. Like that's a bullshit statement that they've put out. I don't think that's a valid reason at all. They're looking to cut their budget and they want to get out. That's simple as that.
So, have you any other exciting or good news stories now? Something exciting?
Good news, exciting. I don't know. It could be good news. So, do you know the way Donald?
Be good news.
Do you know the way Donald?
It's not going to be good news. I know.
I'm a big fan.
Unless it's Donald Duck now.
No. I wish it was Donald Duck. Do you ever that theory which I loved actually, which was
I love how Donald Duck is after.
No, it was Donald Duck. Do you ever notice that Donald Duck does not wear pants, but yet he wears a towel when he comes out of the shower? Yeah.
Saw that recently somewhere.
Absolutely, it was brilliant. I love it. That's the kind of stuff now that keeps me up at night as an academic. Yeah, absolutely.
Not the other stuff that keeps you up on Saturday, I'd say.
So what? So one thing is the Donald Trump, as we know, kind of has been trying to launch Truth Social. Which is a social media platform.
Sorry.
What are you laughing at?
I looked at the face on him when I looked.
Never mind, we're driving on. Don't mind that. Don't mind him. We all know who the consummate professional is on this panel. But anyway, so SPAC. Do you know what a SPAC is? No. It's a special purpose acquisition company. And effectively what a SPAC is that it's a number of shareholders who have come together, or not shareholders, a number of investors who are come together who they wouldn't have the power themselves to buy a company, but they come together for the special purpose of investing in something. In this particular case, a social media platform. So
a load of people with loads of money and don't know what to do with it.
Correct. Or it can also be made up of like a lot of people with not a lot of money investing in something stupid that they don't know what the special purpose is. But regardless, it's a collection of it's an investment fund effectively, and they are interested in either merging with or acquiring Truth Social, which is Donald Trump's social media platform, and the SEC. Have basically said that they are filing a number of investigations with Truth Social over the next couple of weeks and with this particular SPAC, and that means that the acquisition may not go ahead and Donald Trump's social media network might die. So that is effectively where that is at the moment.
Who even thought it was a good idea to invest in the first place? Like,
well, you see, the problem is it was Trump, and typically speaking, because he like the thought process is that he's going to run again, right? Oh, Jesus Christ. So that's actually fucking annoying me now that I just even thought of that now again. It's never ending. But the point here is that, and I think there's a few things going on here. One, there's a lot of people still, for some reason, believe that he is in some way a legitimate leader of supposedly the freest country in the world who just blocked people getting abortions. But anyway,
just reminded me there, going back on the story even you said earlier at the start, the only person I thought that would have ever beaten him if he does go back, and just probably because what's come out and what the type of personality she is and everything she stands for, definitely I think the only person that will have a clear win and run is Michelle Obama.
I was thought you were going to say that, Jay.
She will walk that now if she goes against him.
I don't think so.
Really?
And you know why? And this is going to sound absolutely terrible.
Go on.
America will not elect a black woman to presidential office. They won't do it. And that sounds ridiculous, but they just won't. I think next time she'd have a good chance again.
I
hope so. I really, really do. And I don't know much about Michelle Obama. I don't know what her credentials are, but I mean, ultimately, she comes across as very, very dignified, level-headed. She's been in.
You've always said, all you need, don't start wars.
Don't start war. Don't start wars for no reason. Be dignified. Look after people. That's your job as leader of the free world, as far as I'm concerned. But that would be interesting, and I think, to be honest with you, putting someone like Michelle Obama up against a pig like Donald Trump would actually show a lot of the. It would show a lot of the nastiness. I'm actually turned off by the whole thing. The last when that thing went through during the week, I was like, because there's been a lot of small things that have happened recently, like the World Cup in Qatar, where if you're going there as a gay person, you're going to get prosecuted and killed. It came out during the week that even if you have a one-night stand, you could end up in jail. So that sounds like a really fun World Cup. You can't drink, you can't have sex, you can't have drugs, otherwise you go to jail for 12 years. What a time to be alive. That's a World Cup. Then you had the Wade stuff. And again, it just showed you that, like, no matter how much we paper over all the kind of cracks and as much as we say we've moved on as a civilization, society, we haven't. Like, all it takes is a few fucking old bastards to ruin it for everyone as usual. This is always going to come out at some point. How did we get on this from Donald Trump's social network?
Drive it on something else. You were talking about investments there.
Yeah, so my point was in relation to Trump's network, and I think this is going to emerge on the back of Musk as well, in the same way that I'd been saying for a long time, a lot of people have been saying for a long time, that there was a social network due to break through. And there was a few skated around the edges, like Social Vero and stuff like that, because Facebook was dying off. And people were getting a little bit kind of pissed off, or Instagram wasn't really innovating that much.
It's very hard to think of what's left that will break through.
Well, you say,
I just think it's interesting.
Would you say that for TikTok? Like, but the point here is that, is there an opportunity if Musk goes in to Twitter and ruins it?
Oh, there'll be a space.
Is there an opportunity for a
just
news?
Hopefully it's not Truth Social, whatever he calls it.
Well, no, but that's my point. Is that why there was that potential acquisition there? Because again, it would be a nice news. No, risk, it wouldn't be Truth. Ironically, it's called Truth Social, and it's being run by the Republican. John, that's not how it works. But my point is that is the logic of the SPAC or logic of investors going to be looking at
long-term planning?
If Musk doesn't get this right, is there an opportunity either to acquire Twitter once it's a shell of itself, once Musk pulls out, or a new social networking app, which is, as I would call Twitter, and maybe not now, but a number of years ago, it was the perfect app in between Facebook and LinkedIn. Yeah. It was kind of news. It was more factual. It's become a bit more kind of emotive now recently enough, and Twitter can be a complete cesspit at times, but I think there could be a space there for a new social media platform like that. I don't know how it works. We've mentioned loads of things in the past in terms of how they could make it work, but is that what these investors are looking at? What's the next social media platform that could emerge from the ashes of a Twitter, for example?
No matter what, verification has to be on it.
Verification,
and
subscription.
Possibly a subscription, yeah. A little sort of a premium. No, it doesn't have to be big. Small. It's like the initial days of WhatsApp. What was it, like €1 or something, and that was it. But the thing is, it will filter out the crap.
I don't mind paying for I'm paying 20 quid a month for Netflix. Apparently, you told me earlier on.
You're fucking Egypt for it. I don't know what you are.
The 4K version.
You're watching 5 different things at the one time.
I don't mind paying for good news. It was like I pay for certain newspapers, FT and so on and so forth. I don't mind paying for good quality news content, whatever you want to call it. That's exactly what Twitter is, and it'd be way more valuable, and I'd use it more, and I'd make it more. It would be more lucrative to advertisers if there was less people on it. Just like paying your
TV license bill. Yeah.
I always pay my TV license bill, and if
never have a TV,
and if one never have a TV, it's not even that anymore. It's a broadcasting.
It's a media license or something.
I don't have a
ridiculous
phone.
thing in the world.
I don't have a phone.
What?
I don't have a phone. I don't have a laptop.
Pigeon.
Carrier pigeon. Speaking of TV licenses, John, hear a joke.
Go for it.
I heard this actually from producer Owen there, so he can take credit for this. But given that we were just talking about media licenses or TV licenses and all the rest of it, but TV license inspector calls to a fella's door, knocks on the door and says, "You haven't paid your TV license, mate." Man turns around and says, "Don't have a television." TV license inspector looks up and says, "You've got an aerial on the roof." Your man says, Well, I got milk in the fridge, but that doesn't mean I have a fucking cow at the back either, does it?
This is going on. This is going on.
It is good to be fair. It was funny. I thought it was very
You can
funny.
use that at home.
I thought it was very funny. That'll be a TikTok now, and that might get a bit of
There we go.
might get a bit of traction.
I was going to say first off there, we have a bit of a congratulations, but it's amazing that there's 2 full pints in front of us there and we do this.
Through the magic of modern cinema production and our producer Owen, we're like Jesus.
Refillable glasses.
We just had we had nearly empty drinks and now they are full.
It's amazing, yeah. Anyway, keep going.
There's also an extra bottle on the table. We won't talk about that.
No, we always had 3. You just
Oh yeah, we got rid of the other one. Yeah.
shut up, you. We have a congratulations to say to the local boys.
Yes, in
While
fairness,
speaking about investments.
Cork-based employees, entrepreneurs, which is Joel Lennon and John Goulding, who are the co-founders of Work Vivo. So they have recently, as today, raised 21 million euros worth of ancillary funding, and that brings their total fundraise to about 36 mil. And this fundraise was led by venture capitalists from Tiger Global. So a big vote of confidence for the two lads. And again, if you look at their some of their clients are Amazon, Bupa, TELUS International, so on and so forth. So massive companies.
Great team there as well. Even 2 designers on the team, Cleena and Anthony, absolutely phenomenal at what they do. Like, it's just all around a local success story. Is doing very well for themselves.
Oh, it is, yeah. No, and again, it fits into the world is always moving on in terms of employee engagement, right? And they're up against some big players, your Slacks of this world and so on and so forth, but really holding their own. And hopefully this means a hiring spree across Ireland, UK, elsewhere where they've got offices and so on and so forth, where they're hoping to possibly hire upwards of 200 people, and they currently have about 100 people working for them. So massive expansion going on. So congratulations to you boys.
Best of luck to them. Yep. So give us the last bit.
Why didn't you ever do something like that?
What?
Rather than setting up a fucking shitty
Raise
podcast.
21 million or hire 200. Which one would you like?
Raise the 21 million, then you can hire the employees afterwards.
And pay you to do this full time.
No problem.
Enjoying that. It's nice, actually, isn't it?
It's a lovely beer. Again, what I would actually, because you actually get this in pubs as well.
Yes.
And the draft is absolutely gorgeous. Really nice. What I like about this is that, do you know the way there's, like last week we were talking about the club, Rock Shandy collaboration with Rascals. And it was, week before. And it was, and I was saying it was a summery drink.
Yes.
And like usually during the winter, I'll drink the local stout, so Shandon Stout, Murphy's, and so on and so forth, because stout winter. This is one of those that is equally a summery drink, and you could drink it during the winter as well. It's really nice. It's got a nice richness to it, but it's also got a kind of a nice sweet taste to it as well. So
I'm a fan of IPAs, and well, in this case, KPA, Kinsale Pale Ale. But what I like about this is, sometimes especially with kind of the craft beers, you can get the quite heavy, kind of not chemically taste, but that quite heavy and stodgy and make you feel ill after one or two.
Craft brewers will be out against you. A chemically taste from the craft beer. Oh, they won't like that.
They won't like that. But this is actually nice. You could actually drink a few of those and you wouldn't get that heavy feeling.
Throwing avocados at you and everything.
What?
Throwing avocados at you.
No. That's more insulting than what I said now. So moving on, what else have you got for us?
So I don't have anything else left, Dave. So do you have anything else left?
I do. I'll save it. 45% of podcast listeners started listening to podcasts in the past year, according to new research from Acast and Nielsen. Does that include you?
And where are they? Where are all these podcast
They're all
listeners?
listening to this.
Yeah, they are. Where are all these new listeners? Yeah.
No, what I thought was interesting is we've talked about here about ways for brands to look at new forms of advertising, new forms of media to latch on to, or social, even looking at ways to use digital or traditional that they've never thought about. But this whole world of podcasting is on the increase as a whole, and it is an interesting way for brands to look at ways to see can they tap into, whereas for advertising, starting their own podcast, the likes of, we already just mentioned Work Vivo and all these kind of bigger kind of corporate technology brands, they even have internal podcasts of staff, upwards into the hundreds of staff, people talking to each other. So I just think this is a very interesting way for brands to go forward.
Yeah, so I mean, look, even for us, so we haven't mentioned it yet. This is our last episode of this series. We're taking a short hiatus. so I can go and enjoy me fucking summer holidays.
Typical academics and teachers always looking for an extended
Hey,
holiday.
you wanted a holiday as well. What we need is time to.
I got me weekend.
You did no. I need on a Tuesday. I kind of like going drinking and
Difference
in an
between public
outdoor
and the
pub.
private
Yeah,
sector, I
exactly.
tell
Yeah, and in a pub with a beer garden, not the studio with no beer
Nothing wrong
garden,
with
and
it.
these lights beaming down on us. But even ourselves,
You've
like
never had to queue for a drink in here.
You're right. Actually, no, you're right. To be fair, but even we're looking now, and for the next series, pushing this out in terms of different bits and pieces. We're not going to go into really, but we're looking at. Well, no, I'm not going to talk about it, but how we can integrate more brands, how we can work with brands more, how we can work with people more in terms of from entrepreneurs
Business
to
stories,
business stories, all this kind of stuff, and how we can link it in. The podcast is always there, but how do you spread and build your brand architecture out a small bit? And again, we're working here with Skeleton Resources ultimately, and we have the stats. So you can imagine if you were a brand with resources, what you can do with this as a medium. And it's only becoming more and more like even so when I was on the flight back from Portugal there during the week, I had no interest in downloading something from Netflix. I just wanted to have something in the ear that I could close my eyes, or even in so I don't know if this is a typical Irish when you're abroad thing, right? But if you're in Portugal and we can't, we go outside and we melt, right? So if you go like when
That's
I
why
was
you put
over,
the cap on.
oh, but that's it. But I was over in like. If I was sitting on a beach or lying on a beach, I didn't want to watch a film. Everything was, you wanted to podcast, exactly. So, and again, if you're going for a walk, which invariably we're not static, right? When we're either in having lunch at work or we're
Driving the
walking
car
to
or
work.
whatever.
So therefore, that form of medium is something where there can be a huge amount of development in. And again, you can see the growth, 45% in 1 year. That's massive.
Well, for anyone that doesn't know, like who I mentioned there was Acast. So like we use Acast here for the podcast.
Oh, there's
Acast.
not an ad. Hashtag ad.
It's not an ad unless they want to pay us. This can be an ad all they want, but no, it's not an ad. So Acast has become one of the industry leaders for the distribution of podcasts. So that's why they went and conducted this data. But 70% engage with podcasts content more than once a week. But listeners also said they expect to increase their podcast consumption in the next 6 months. So in terms of the kind of the age range that they were looking at, 53% of 18 to 34-year-olds only started listening in the past year, whereas 65% of over 55s were already listening for over the 12 months ago. So definitely the younger audience, I think, and I think that's down to the likes of the people that are creating podcasts. Like you're starting to see, UK comedians coming out with podcasts, kind of influencers coming out with podcasts. So like they're attracting that younger audience onto the platforms to listen to them. Do you know, whereas we would have seen this early on with the likes of, the Joe Rogan and all these kind of people moving to Spotify, you know, but in terms of they were moving everything over to Spotify,
absolutely,
Michelle Obama got a contract with Spotify, Bruce Springsteen and, Barack Obama, they were the big contracts that start coming out first. So now
there is, but I think so there's a dual kind of a focus here, right? So one is, how can you reach audiences that you couldn't reach before for maybe an SME or even a brand or something like that? And then you've got your superstars, so your Obamas, your Michelle Obamas, your Joe Rogan. Do you know what I mean? So they're over here and park that for a second. But even if you take my own industry, for example, of academia, typically what would often happen is that someone could do, in marketing, for example, they could do some cutting edge research, really, really interesting stuff. It goes into an academic article, which goes through rigorous peer review, goes into an academic journal. It's presented at an academic conference to other academics who have already read the academic journal. And it never goes beyond that. It never goes beyond that as much as it should. With a medium such as a podcast, that's where universities can start investing in these things and start actually taking that research and making it consumable to the public audience that it was intended for, be that business owners, some individuals. And again, some like my colleagues inside, some of them do incredible research from gig economy workers and their experiences right through to drug users at festivals and
just
controlling
because
the carnival there. So
how it's produced is never going to be read. Never. Do you know?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I say never, like, but you know, very small audience.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Students looking to do research for their papers, realistically, like, you
Well,
know.
that, and you could also, again, it depends on like, for example, one of my colleagues did research a number of years ago on market mavenism, which is basically if people go to festivals and they take a load of drugs, that it can't be good for you ultimately if you haven't got a way to test whether those drugs were bad or whatever the story is, right?
Would love to have seen his primary research.
Ultimately, yeah, but it was done through pillreports.com, which is a site that's basically used to, for want of one better word, grade different types of drugs. So effectively what it is. But the point here is that the government at the moment have a situation whereby they basically say drugs are bad, therefore we're not going to tell you how to consume them safely. Whereas pill reports fill that gap in the marketplace. So in the absence of an institution giving information, consumers then give that information instead. So if you can take, for example, someone who's just starting college and wants to experiment with drugs. Okay, the utopian is that they don't consume drugs at all.
Yeah, we don't promote condone the use of drugs.
Of course, but the point is that that's a binary way of looking at it. You don't take them or you do take them. There's obviously a grey area there. So that would be interesting research for that. Or people who are going to festivals, or parents who are sending their kids away and they don't necessarily... It's educating people with something above and beyond the audience that article would have originally kind of went to, you know? So again, that's just an example of academia. Local brands, the exact same kind of idea. Like, I mean, why wouldn't you have... Like, if you take Cork businesses, for example.
A couple of weeks ago, I featured on the Cork credit unions.
Yeah,
all come together as a podcast. So,
I did.
No nice words there. Thanks, yeah, good man. But like that, they've all come together.
I listened to it.
You got a mention. You're all right.
Did I?
The obviously
I didn't listen to the full thing. No.
It was at the end. The Cork credit unions have all come to what? I think you got a mention too, don't worry.
He is Owen there at the corner, yeah, exactly.
Normally when you shout I'm in trouble for something, that's why I stopped. But like they've all come together as a collective, like, you know, so it's like all these groups are coming together, different people's different interests, they're all just coming together. And I just think podcasts are an incredibly attractive medium that businesses should look into, whether it's for spending advertising to sponsorship or putting ads with, or actually starting their own one.
Yeah, no, absolutely 100%. And again, this is all about mediums, opportunities. Again, the markets.
Okay, sorry about the break there. Now we've just had a bit of a clarification we need to address, I suppose, from producer Owen. That already we've mentioned that you were talking about the price of gear. I talked about keeping you up on a Saturday. You were just talking about drugs again, and you're just back from Portugal. But Dave, I think we need to clarify.
Around. Owen has just turned around and said, unintentionally, you have scaffolded this episode in such a way where it looks like I am into recreational drug use. Whereas earlier on when we were talking about gear, we were talking about, what was it?
I don't know, fun Saturday nights.
Fun Saturday night, that was in relation to something else, but there's another person as opposed to hallucinogenics involved.
Just to clarify.
Just to be absolute... And that was it, yeah. So, like, no, just to be absolutely clear, everyone, I am not into recreational drug use. Should we carry on with the rest of the episode?
Carry on there, go on.
It's the first ever time we've had to actually get the producer to step in.
There's a reason we asked him to come along.
Exactly, yeah.
So driving on, finish off, good news story, what have you got for me?
Good news story. So I said, you know what, it's the end of the series. And a lot of this series has been spent, I should say, bitching and moaning about social media, how terrible social media is, and blah blah blah.
One side more than another.
Yeah, that's because you just don't care as much as I do. Okay. But I saw this. So this was originally tweeted by a guy called Brett Forshaw. And the tweet was basically this: just seeing this old man struggling to walk down the street after nipping to the shops in Goulburn, whatever that is, saw this young lad stop to ask was he okay. He then carried his stuff and held the man's arm as he got home. Well done to that lad, and credit to his parents. And there's a photo of the young lad helping the old fella back home. And I just thought, after all the absolute shit that we've been talking about social media and how terrible it is, that's a nice story. And every now and then social media helps amplify.
Has a win.
It has a win. It helps amplify. So, and I even retweeted that a number of weeks ago. I thought it was a nice. I know it was weird.
Sure, you weren't on drugs.
Was it? It was a complete no. Because usually, again, bitching and moan. That's where social media wins. Good news story amplified. Happy days.
Brilliant. Good. Well, that's a good note to end it on. So we finished. Cheers. Yeah.
Cheers, Owen.
Cheers, Owen. 10 episodes in, delighted to get the video up and going. You can obviously follow us on social media, YouTube, Spotify, everywhere you want. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks when Dave decides he needs to get back to work. And
it'll be more than a couple of weeks, and I'm going to be working a hell of a lot fucking harder than you over this summer. I can guarantee you that.
I think we both know the answer to that one. Thanks very much, everyone, for listening over the last few weeks. We really appreciate it. And keep in touch, and we will see you again in a few weeks. Take care.
Back in a few weeks. See you later.